Welcome back to the channel, and I hope you all are having a great day. So today we want to talk about Deion Sanders, Kevin Samuels, what had been out there in the press is that they both recently, or over a short period of time, had sit downs with Brittany Renner. And if you don't know who Brittany Renner is, I believe she used to be a soccer player, but then she became like an Instagram sensation. Has her own, I'm not sure if it's a clothing line or something like that. Not really, up to speed on Brittany Renner, but a lot of us are aware of her very public uh, situation with the NBA star PJ Washington, where they birthed a baby, and then there was a big domestic dispute, and it was kind of played out, in the public's eye in a very ugly fashion, right? Um, and a lot of the pushback Brittany Renner got was that when she talked about her, pretty much her entire, or at least it came off on social media like her entire method was about, getting money from athletes that, she would have this baby and then she'd get the big multi-million child support payments. I think 50 Cent made a song, um, was it some years ago, about have a baby by me and be a millionaire, right? And so that's always kind of been the unspoken situation in the background uh, that if you would be impregnated by these millionaires, uh, then they could have this life of luxury because now the millionaire celebrity would have to pay child support, would have to, and these mothers would get the money, and it could be in millions of dollars and so on and so forth. It's also a very interesting movie where something like that comes out, uh, called The Lottery Ticket, right? Where Bow Wow plays this kid who wins the lottery, and some of the women are trying to trick him into having a baby with him, and they're putting holes in his condom and crazy things like that, and so he has to be careful of this. And so this kind of seems similar to these kind this an idea. Now, uh uh the thing about Brittany Renner is that Renner became kind of like symbolic of many of these Instagram models and imagery and fears, and she basically became the manifestation, of that entire idea into a form, into flesh, right? And so what I think happened with Brittany Renner is, whereas this has always kind of been the theme that Instagram models, these big celebrities go out, they date these Instagram models, and these Instagram models uh basically tell them they got to pay them, for their services. I've heard crazy stories like where people take um Instagram models out on dates, and when they take them out on dates, then the model turns around and says, "Well, it's going to cost you, $4,000 or $5,000, $8,000, to engage in any sexual relations, with them." So it becomes this very transactional thing, right? And so that seems to be the whole, imagery of these type relationships, that everything is transactional, even down to the offspring and the children and things like that. And so, whether or not this is what Brittany Renner was going for, as we've seen some of her sit downs, where she's expressed regret in certain things she said, in certain mentality she was in, and being, I guess, under what she felt the betrayal of her relationship. Um, you know, it basically, she got became the she became the poster person for all of that, right? A place where people who have become fed up with this, she became the object of their attention, right? The object of their affections, for lack of a better word. So, um, fast forward to what's happening after all that played out. Some big personalities online, in sports, people like Deion Sanders, now the head of Jackson State. But if you go back to the 90s, oh man, Deion Sanders was a big NFL star, I believe, for the Los Angeles Raiders. He played two professional sports at the same time, right? He would leave football season, go to baseball season, right? So it's real crazy. Him and Bo Jackson, right? There was another. He was two of them that was big and famous around that same era, and they were doing this, and it was just amazing. Can you imagine being so talented to play two sports at a professional level, but not just play them at a professional level, play them in the same season, pretty much, right? Because that's what Deion Sanders was doing. He wasn't. It wasn't kind of like a Michael Jordan thing where he left one sport and then he said, "Okay, let me try this." No, he was actually his both of his careers were going at the same time. This is how good he was. This is how crazy this was, right? And so Deion Sanders did all that. Also, so one of the one of the things that it came up about Deion Sanders was by him giving Brittany Renner further relevance and a platform to kind of legitimizing her innocence and bringing her to Jackson State to speak to his his athletics department, the team. A lot of people were upset about that because they felt Brittany Renner was a person who shouldn't be given that relevance or brought to the limelight, but also why it's so close together with the age of the students that Deion Sanders coaches at Jackson State. Just to kind of bring a full circle, the story about how Brittany Renner was able to have a baby with PJ Washington is that he was groomed, that she would attend his games at very early, before he even, I believe, got to college. So he would have been a minor. And she was about 6, 7 years older, right? So she was, practically an adult, if all things considered are true. Now, there are a few things we need to consider to kind of understand the uproar of it and how it played out across social media. I think especially it impacted men to a certain degree, and I think I know the reasons why. So what we first have to understand is legally under the law, right? Even if this was true and it went exactly how social media put it out there, when Brittany told her story, a lot of that, where the age thing was there and she was going to the games, I think she denied going for those reasons, so on and so forth, right? I don't think anybody would want to admit to that, even if that was the case. But not in that form. A lot of times women will say something like they were friends, with these people till they came of age. And what I found, just in my own personal opinion, what I found to likely be true in those cases is oftentimes it is one of those situations where they're interested in one another, but the law is preventing them from being involved, and that's the only reason they're not involved, right? So there have been several cases like that with celebrity people I've been aware of, and it's generally pretty much led to that. Now, the part that gets people upset is, I think, especially on the men's side, is that it felt like a type of kind of stalkerish behavior, but also a type of entrapment. And with her being a much older lady, this kind of like a type of mental manipulation, right? And so a lot of people would say something to the point, well, oh, they didn't do anything until they were adults, and you know what I mean, and they should be allowed to carry on those relationships, so on and so forth. But I think what we have to understand is in the interpretation of the law and age, I think we can all agree that when it comes to what the age is on the law and uh, what a person's age is emotionally and what constitutes an adult might be different than biological age, right? And some different examples of that that do seem kind of inconsistent is one thing can be said is, we can say something to the point that an 18-year-old generally in our society shouldn't be allowed to drink, but they're allowed to be sent off to war. The military allows you to drink because of that. But it is interesting that the age to possibly be killed in war can be this very adult decision and be given to an 18-year-old, but they can't smoke cigarettes or drink tobacco or, you know what I mean? So to me, that shows an example of age in relation to emotional maturity. We don't feel people of that age is capable and competent to make that decision, and that's why such laws are imposed, right? Um, and so I think that's where probably Brittany gets pushback a bit from society. Now, on the basis of the law itself, she's perfectly in the legal framework to do that. You know what I mean? Same thing like when people get married when they're 16 years old. In certain areas, certain states, they're in the legal framework to do that. But obviously, based on them in particular, some people might raise the idea of this person is like way too young. 16 is too young to get married. Some people might think 20 is too young to get married, right? So there does seem to be that, and so there's the legal part of the age of consent and so on and so forth, and then there's that emotional part that we're all very aware of, and that's just something you have to weigh out. And I think in this particular case with him being athlete and him being rich and things like that, it just kind of fits good in the minds of a lot of people with that story, right? Um, Now I think Brittany and PJ at the end of the day, they're the ones who really know the reality of that situation. There are young people who exhibit a great deal of maturity at a young age. But the reality of the situation, when I was in my early 20s, around PJ Washington's age, a lot of that mindset was still video games and still a lot of, things that today many people would class as not very mature, and I think that's a very common theme with many young men of that age, right? um and so I think that's what a lot of concern was, besides his his the future. Now let's get to the education part of this, um and see if we can get something of substance from this. So Brittany coming down to or being given the spotlight by Deion Sanders, um maybe even the case of Kevin Samuels. I get to him a little bit later, but uh, the athletics department, right? These young men who are potential NFL players in the future, potential, big all-star athletes, and so on and so forth. Um, uh, when they do make it to the NFL, and I know this because I did play ball back in school, and two of my teammates went on to become NFL players. I know a lot of people don't, might find it hard to believe. Education, entertainment, television was a baller. Lift a lot of weights and did a lot of stuff like that. One of my teammates actually came back after he made it to the NFL, showed me a good time, took me out. We had a really good time, right? But it does end in a certain tragedy to a certain extent, where they make some mistakes and they actually, leave the NFL, right, or cut from the team. And a lot of this has to do with some of the I think being young, being a young person, coming into a situation like that, and just maybe not taking advantage of some of the educational programs that were provided by the NFL and access and many other avenues to do that. And I'll give you an example of what I mean. Like the NFL unions and many of the programs that they have when you become a athlete is or a member of that team. They have several programs to guide you through and help your career, and one of them is financial training, right? And there are classes that are put on, and I've heard so many stories where after they talk about during those classes they would sleep through them, right? They would, not pay attention to them. And some of these athletes years later would end up, broke. It kind of reminds me of the military as well. In the military, there are a lot of young men, 18 coming in there, never been out into the world, haven't been in other countries. They take time to issue you condoms to protect yourselves from sexual encounters abroad, protect yourself from STDs, give you that training and give you some extra teaching that more impulsive, more adventurous, young men may not have, right? So the point I'm trying to make is I do think it's valid that these organizations provide these programs, these educational programs to help these athletes navigate into a healthy career because, let's face it, if you got all this stuff going on, whether it be things with, Instagram models, endangering your financial security or, whether you got or whatever the case may be, right? Your health, whatever. Uh, the health of your career is going to depend on how you navigate it, right? And you're also a very important part of that team, right? You're worth millions of dollars to that team, right? So it's also in their best interest to keep you on the straight and narrow and keep things together. And I think Deion Sanders kind of falls in that category as well, where he's seeing this is training that they needed. So I would see this as definitely valid educational, right? Certainly, absolutely. Especially with the uproar that Brittany Renner got being the face. Now, truth be told, I don't think Brittany Renner is anything, out of the ordinary of what has always went on in athletics, what's always went on Instagram, social media. I think the only thing is Brittany Renner just managed to, with her large amount of followers she already had, probably her connections and things like that, she just managed to get the attention maybe at the wrong time of everybody. And everything just lined up for her to be the face of this. And so now, she kind of becomes public enemy number one in this. And that's something I don't think even she wanted. Right. I think she just wanted to vent to losing PJ. And it got a lot out of hand. Now she's trying to make something, of it. And I think when she got on the Kevin Samuels podcast, I think it was a similar thing for Kevin Samuels. Kevin Samuels is a very intelligent business person, marketing person, and I think he saw this as a twofold, as a good opportunity for his platform, but also as a learning tool to men and women who want to be like Brittany Renner, and that if you achieve that goal, you become like Brittany Renner. This is this is playing out right in front of our eyes. This is like a real time model. This is what could happen, and this is the steps you could take, and this is as big as you can probably get in the Instagram social media world, and this is how it could possibly end. Are you prepared for that? Is this a teaching lesson for you? Right. So I see both, in that regard, Kevin Samuels, and I also think it's fair that if there's so much pushback about the age of young athletes, young millionaire celebrities potentially possibly being manipulated, that there be the avenue for another educational program to counter that. It's no different than when they used to send the military to school systems to recruit these kids. And, they end up, in a war zone in several months. Well, some educational programs began to send soldiers in that had a bad experience in the military, that were wounded, badly hurt. Some people killed, that, and advocate that they not go in the military. So so you had the recruiters, putting out all of their information about the good of the military. Then you had that other education, so the students received this balanced education. And so, if there are Brittany Renners out there that are dangerous to these young people, then Deion Sanders providing a program to counter that, I think, is just educational. And Kevin Samuels using it as his tool to maybe teach and educate, whatever his education is on his platform, in that sense, or what parts of it are relational. Kind of, to me, did make a lot of sense. But that's all I want to say in the video. If you like content like this, don't forget to like, subscribe. Until next time, as always, take care of yourselves and each other.